Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Tom. How are you?
I am fantastic as well, and we're stepping up. We're in an actual studio this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're with Mathias John, who is joining us to talk about his life. He's a musician, a studio designer, triathlete, author. We're going to talk about all of those types of things as we go through. First off, I want to make sure we mention that you got to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Thumbs up, all the good comments and all that stuff that helps the algorithms and gets us out there a little bit further. So we appreciate all of that. So, Mathias, you've got a great story. We've got stuff to talk about. We talk about inspiring stories and overcoming odds and going through things. And you have quite the story. And you've written a book about it. You've written a book about it, even better much, which we're going to talk a lot about as well.
Sure.
But give us your background and your challenges and what you've been going through.
Sure. Yeah. Again, Mathias John. Been in Nashville since 2011. Grew up around the suburbs of Chicago. So I'm northerner by heart.
Nice.
Been in Nashville a bit, and this is most certainly home. I moved here to pursue music, to pursue engineering. I wanted to be a producer engineer. I went to school for audio engineering previously, right before I made the jump here, had an internship at a studio, and was just doing, that was the path. That was the new thing that I was going to do. Prior to audio engineering, I studied architecture, and I practiced architecture in the suburbs of Chicago. So I kind of had that in my back pocket. I didn't want to use it. Which my parents would hate to hear right now. You don't want to use that bachelor's degree? No, not really. But it ended up coming in very useful. So about 4 months into my stay in that internship in Nashville, I ended up meeting my mentor, Steve. We're in his studio currently. And he was an engineer first, then got into design, acoustics, and I was a designer first, then got into engineering. So we had flipped paths to the design world, the studio design world. And so he was, looking for someone to kind of carry on a lot of the knowledge and everything that he's built over, a 50-year career. Mm-hmm. I was young and hungry and ready to do anything. So the first thing I did with Steve was actually hang that door right there.
Nice job, by the way.
So construction as well.
Some construction, yeah.
Still up.
Yeah, and all the mic panels you see on the walls, I soldered all those. All those
Outstanding.
connections, yeah. So
Soldered. Yes.
we had to do, there was a year of this studio was kind of under construction, so I just did whatever he wanted me to do and just said yes. You have to. I need to get going.
That's
so
it.
one day I sat down, I showed him my architectural portfortio, and I think something clicked in his head of, he was actually serious about his architecture.
No, he really does.
Yeah,
So
he actually can draw.
For the uninitiated that are seeing and listening to this, when you talk about studios, are these studios for individuals? Are these studios for companies?
Sure.
It's all the above?
All the above, yeah. We work with engineers, producers on any level. We work with some of the biggest stars on the planet, and then a lot of these younger up and comings that we just look at them, have good conversation. We're like, man, we believe you're going to get somewhere in the next 10 years. They both get different scopes. But yeah, it goes all over the place. We've worked with a lot of corporations too. So I'd say 80% of our work is studio design specifically, but the principles of acoustics kind of translate into different areas. So we do some corporate work.
Yeah.
Just for...
And you're national, right?
Stuff.
So you're
we're
all
national. Yeah. So I think we were discussing earlier about 50% of our jobs are local.
Okay.
The rest are all over the country. So we're in every time zone, 3 different countries. We travel well.
So for reference, if you look at Nashville, how many studios do you think are currently running in Nashville? Like
on this block, there's 4 on this block.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it's like hundreds, right? I mean, it's thousands, right?
Thousands, yeah. At one time, there was 3,000.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was a good bit ago, probably before I got involved. So they're everywhere. I mean, there's 3 Grammy winners on this alley.
That's amazing.
Alone.
So it can range from anything from I think my daughter's the next Taylor Swift. Can you put a studio in our basement? To I'm a major recording artist and I need a studio in my house too.
Yeah, or a
I'm
retired doctor.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. We worked with a couple cardiosurgeons that were into music while they were putting themselves through med school, and
that's awesome.
Come back around to it, or owners of TV stations that have kind of cashed out and they're ready to do something else, and it just the the range is very, very wide, which is really fun because some artists know what they want. They've been in studios. They get that part. People that are new to it, we get to guide them a little more.
That's right.
Hand holding. So like, this is a compressor. This is a microphone. Like it will get down to that, like if it needs to. So,
and a lot of the importance of the design is the vibe, right?
Yeah.
The artist
vibes,
needs
everything.
a vibe to feel good, to get their creative juices going, get them going through.
Oh,
so
100%.
that's
Yeah.
critical to
Yeah.
having
Could
good
you-
sound and a good vibe.
Oh yeah. Could you design a 25-yard pool with audio in it?
you can. It's possible.
It is possible.
Yeah,
That's
it
what I
is.
want. I want a
It is
25-yard pool.
Yeah.
Lane
So
pool
do I.
And I want that to have acoustic in it rather
Yeah,
than wearing
no,
a
yeah.
stupid.
That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing.
It's-
I'm telling you,
good.
it's going to be a whole nother niche market for it.
Okay,
It could be
so.
We'll have to do some
Mariah
R&D on
McCaffrey.
that.
Can you do Atmos? Can you do Atmos?
Oh, jeez, Atmos is an Atmos pool.
We just went geek that way.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
went
Yeah,
okay.
anyway, yeah.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
So yeah, studio design's been good.
Good.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so that's the day. That's the day to day. We're sitting in a studio that we record. Not as much as we used to. We stay pretty busy on design. We have a younger engineer producer who's using this studio a lot. She's 23 and just
Nice.
she's brilliant.
Good.
She's a composer too. I mean, she does a lot of just amazing things. And
Cool.
she's in here. She's got a mix on the board now. She's just like she's hitting it.
Cool.
Which is really fun to see.
Do you want to hear it? Should we hear it?
We could. I think it's on tape. Maybe after we're done, we'll just
take a
see
quick
what it's.
listen.
Live right now.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We're taking this in there.
Yeah.
and
Everybody
just,
move.
What does this one do? Like push some buttons around.
There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, that's been it's been very good. The career path has been you wouldn't have guessed it, but it's like
Yeah.
most people in Nashville. How'd you end up here? And was this what you were thinking you were going to do? And
Sure.
a lot of times it's music. Music brings a lot of people here, and then people work kind of music adjacent in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. And so I've been able to stay really plugged into the community that I wanted to be a part of. I still can be a part of that. I'm just not recording engineering. It's more of being involved in the spaces that they work in, which is still, probably even more fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
With
Well, and it endures,
design.
right? Because you can look back and a decade and still see your designs that people are using.
Yeah, it's kind of
So-
cool. Yeah, there's one project we've been working on now that we've been working on for 10 years.
Oh no kidding. Wow. So
Some people just take their time.
They take
Yeah.
their time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very, very unique one.
Cool.
So, Tom mentioned challenges. So it sounds like alcohol was
Yeah,
The-
yeah.
the-
that
the-
was
So in the
it.
middle
the
of all
vice of
this,
choice.
It
Yeah.
was definitely the device of choice. So that got its hooks in me a couple of years back, pretty good. So I mean, it's
And that's
always-
the music industry. I mean, that's and this
that's
town.
the
I say
trouble.
Nashville.
It's a drinking town.
It is a drinking
It's a drinking
town.
town. There's a joke in recovery meetings that if there's a good party scene, there's a good recovery scene, and
Yeah,
Nashville's
yeah.
got a great recovery scene. Just go down Broadway and you figure out real quick. Like,
Yeah.
okay, there's a lot of people hitting it. So yeah, it was to me. I've always joked. Alcohol was kind of the one friend I brought with me from Illinois because I started fresh, right? So
Yeah.
I was the only one of my friends or family that moved away. And
Okay.
so
you got that loneliness, that kind of
I had that loneliness.
anxiety
I
of
didn't
not knowing
have
anybody.
I didn't know anybody. The only person I knew when I moved here was the manager of the recording studio. I didn't have a hotel. I lived in a hotel for a month because I didn't even have an apartment. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
packed
yeah.
up a car and that was it.
Drove down here. And
Drove down here, and so that was comforting for a little while.
sure.
And as part of it's just the social aspect. You're going to see bands, you're going to see out, and everyone drinks a lot.
yeah.
Not everyone, but that's part of the culture.
Yeah.
And so I slowed down a little when I met my wife, Jessie. Met her in 2015. So that kind of smoothed it out for a bit because I was like trying to when it's like the newlywed phase when you start dating, right? You're just like all about each other and you just want to be the best and you do all that and
and that wears off.
then that was it was obviously one wonderful time, but that kind of started fading and I started to put way too much stock in being there 100% for her instead of still keeping what I moved here for. So like instead of going out and still seeing people and being social, I was like, no, I want to be there when she gets home from work. I want to make dinner. I want to be so I kind of let a lot of myself go. And this is all through therapy. I co-wrote the book with my therapist. So I'm really into therapy. My wife's a therapist. So I can't get away from it. So a lot of what I'm saying now is stuff I've worked through.
Yeah.
And it's been shown to me through therapy. So what I basically did was I lost my sense of self early on in my relationship and early on in my marriage, because I was doing everything for her, trying to be, because that's what I thought in my head.
Yeah.
That's a good husband.
Well, that's responsibility, right? That's what you think. That's how we were raised.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you did.
You need to respect who you are as a person at the same time.
Yeah.
So I started self-medicating at home, just like numbing out, because to me, I was like, well, if I'm going to sit here, I might as well have a buzz while I'm doing it, kind of thing. Snowballs pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately.
So give us a day where, I mean, it started out what? Like, oh, I'm just gonna like have a drink with. And what was your drink of choice? Was it?
It changed, right? So it basically shifted based on how secretive I wanted to be, right? Like as an alcoholic, like you want to,
red flag number one is when you start to get secretive.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this is
when you have like the bottles that are on the counter and then one higher up, that goes down quicker, but those bottles stay full.
Yeah.
This is a sign.
Yeah.
For those listening,
that's
to me, it wasn't a
flag,
sign, but like you're in a different headspace when you start to move through that. But so bourbon was a thing, whiskey, I love just like, whiskey rocks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Eventually it was all vodka because in your head, it's cleaner.
Yeah. In your head, you can hide it.
You can hide it. You can't, but right. Yeah. So
what was it like? Was it a 9 a.m. kind of thing? Was it
it got there.
Really?
Yeah. It was always a drink around the studio, like after we're done with work.
You
like wrap up, playing piano, cocktail, whatever.
Yeah.
Drink before she got home from work, drink during dinner, drink after dinner, she go to bed, another drink, and now all of a sudden you're at like 5-6 drinks a night.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of my phase, right? So that's like early on.
Wow.
And this is like, this is part of the book where there's a chapter in the book called Reality Check.
Yeah.
Because I start talking about when I became an alcoholic and I had to be like check myself in my writing.
Yeah.
And I kept moving the date. I'm like, nope, that's still not truthful. So it started way earlier than I want to actually admit. So, once you start being secretive, start hiding it, it started to catch up with you. And there were a couple times where it was like, all right, well, this is going too far. I'm not sure if it's a problem yet. And you start to like work your way through it. And then eventually it was like, we need to take breaks, like month, 2 months, 3 months, like the longer the breaks. But what I found in my journey was the longer the break, the quicker I'd get back to where I was. And then further. Okay. So if it was like a month,
it's almost like a weight loss program, right? Where you lose 10 pounds and then gain 15, right?
Exactly. It's very similar. So if I took like a month off of drinking, it would take a month to get to a point where I was like, this is still a problem again. Like I would ease myself back. And then the whole point of my breaks and drinking was to prove myself. I proved to everyone else, like I could socially drink, right?
I could stop at any time.
I could stop at any time.
I control this.
Right. Yeah. Turns out it couldn't. So, that would go one direction. And then I had like a 4-month stint that was my longest up until, my bottom was like a 4-month break. And I thought I had it under control. And then, I went out for a couple beers. And then I'd say within 2 weeks, it was like, all right, now we need to do this again. Like it was 2 weeks. Now you need to go to like to AA. It was real fast. And so all of it just started accumulating faster and faster. And there was a 2-month span in 2021 that was like February,
so what
March.
was the whole, like, if you were to look at the timeline, how many years are we talking the whole package? So
probably.
You said you got here in 11?
I got here in 11. I met Jesse in 2015. I'd say late 2016 was probably when it was like sneaky.
Okay.
But no one saw it.
Yeah.
Like it was.
You were a functional alcoholic.
I was a very high functioning. My therapist says I'm one of the most high functioning she's ever seen. I'm like, I don't know if I'm proud of that.
Yeah. I don't know if that's.
Is that something that you like hang your hat on? Or is that something you're just like, oof?
I'm really good at hiding, right?
Exactly. So I'd say 2016 is when it became a problem.
And then, I don't mean to drill on the problem, right? Because I guess I'm trying to articulate and let other folks know, like, it's affecting what you're doing during the day. The priority becomes
it's
the
a
booze,
priority thing,
right?
It didn't affect what I was doing during the day. So I think the problem is when you're drinking and not wanting to admit that you are drinking, kind of thing. Like when you're sneaking, you feel guilty about it. That's to me when like the problem kind of started. But it didn't affect my performance. I never.
That's what made you high functioning.
I never missed anything at work. I go on trips, meetings, nothing. No, I didn't miss a deadline.
So it wasn't as if you're sitting, you wake up on a curb, one morning.
Yeah, it wasn't benders that you were disappearing off the map. No, you were just.
I was still up in the morning working out. I mean, I was doing eating healthy.
Yeah.
I was at a pretty healthy weight, and that's the thing. Like no one had any idea.
Yeah.
Like we were sitting. I've been here for 12 years with Steve, roughly, and he never knew. And I was here
literally right next to him
in front of his face.
and
it was, you just never had any idea. And it was just, you just become like a puppet master, and like your life starts to revolve around it. And like, all right, if I do this, I can start to do this here. And like, it's very,
I guess that's what I was trying to get at. The
manipulative.
priority becomes, okay, well, if I do this, then I can get my drink then.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, if I get back in time, then I can get, or
Yeah.
if I do this, so you're
start
negotiating with
scheduling
yourself,
it.
right?
Absolutely negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's driving your schedule in a big way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and Nashville's an interesting problem, to your point. It's not just the socialization, and there's a lot of bars here and all that sort of stuff. But if you look at, I was actually talking to ironically with a beer in my hand, but that's just details. So I was, we were in our pool, we were talking, and we were listening to country music, right? And it's like listening to the top 20 countdown. It's like every single one has to do with whiskey, booze, drinking. I went out, I got drunk last night. The whole culture is around. And I guess whiskey's a nice word because you can rhyme everything with whiskey. Right?
Oh yeah.
It's just got a beautiful
it rhymes with everything.
Yeah, but it's amazing. And, I was about ready to put a spreadsheet together. How many times has the word whiskey, booze, drunk, romantically, right, has been in those top 20 songs, and it's pervasive.
Oh, it's probably 50% right now.
Yeah, at least.
It's
so
crazy.
You're fighting this culture of like you said, you're fighting this culture of socialization. You're fighting this culture. I bet you were cool, right, when you were drinking, or were you angry?
Oh no, I was a for the most part very pleasant person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's attached to pleasantness.
Oh yeah, it was
you
like
feel good.
You feel
People
good.
would notice if you weren't, right? Because you're a pleasant person to begin with. So
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
is it?
mostly.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Plus he's swimming. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. And it's full of curse words.
It's for everybody. That's a universal thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the town, it's all around social have fun. The songs all around social have fun. You know, the romanticism of it, and then here you are fighting. Using the wave analogy, you're swimming upstream against. No, actually, this is detrimental to me. It's not.
Yeah,
something
but and the weird thing is you don't think it is, right? So I still thought it was giving me life for years.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is still fun.
Yeah.
And like, I still look back, I'm like, I still had a great time for a lot of it. Like 90% of it was like fun. Yeah. But like the 10%, eventually that starts to outweigh.
Yeah.
And that doesn't click for a long time. So it would be like, I'd love to go to industry events because everyone else is doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, this is great.
Yeah.
We
And you're
keep
meeting
going.
people that are, have a drink in their hand. You figure what not. Right now. Right?
And it's all.
So.
Yeah, it was real easy to keep going, I think, because of...
So what was the trigger point? What was that time? You noticed that you said, I guess you came back and it was like 2 weeks, you're already back in. But was there, what's the point? At some point, you have a fork in the road.
Yeah.
At some point,
Sure.
you had to say, this is enough.
Yeah, there were two, I think. And they were about a year apart. So it was April of 2020. That's when my wife found the bottles I was hiding.
Oops.
Keep in mind,
That's-
I did not think this was a problem at the time.
She's like, what's those? Like,
But
whoa.
I was literally a closet alcoholic.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like I had bottles of
gotten to
vodka
that point, yeah.
in my closet. The bedroom's upstairs, and so I would go up to shower in the evening and come back down, and I would be way off. Like I'd be drastically different, and eventually my wife's not
Stupid.
She's an
right.
intelligent person.
She's really smart.
She's really smart.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, I got everything fooled. She can't, I'm like just in a different headspace.
It's no big deal, right? You're just going.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But that was, I call that the vodka graveyard. She found it, and I was here, and she texted me like, "Hey, we need to talk tonight."
Yeah.
So that was April 20, and that started my small stints at. I don't even want to call it sobriety. I think sobriety is a good thing. I think this was just me not drinking.
Yeah.
Like there was no.
It's interesting that there's a difference
intent
between
to
not drinking
completely-
and sobriety. That's a really great
I think
point.
there's a very big difference, and so I had no intention of quitting. It was just all right. Let's press
Throttle it back, right?
Is this
press
when
pause.
you started therapy? And
I started therapy about 8 months prior to that.
Okay.
Because I was self-medicating.
yeah.
Yeah. So I went, and there was, we were also, there was anxiety involved. Like we were starting to think about starting a family, and I didn't know I was not processing that well. So I went into therapy with a couple things to kind of work on and start to talk through.
Yeah.
And then it became really specifically focused. About 6 months in, it was like, okay, now we know what the problem is.
Yeah.
But so April 20, that was when I started taking breaks. So it was like a month off, 2 months off, 4 months off. And then, and then April of 21 is when I hit bottom. And bottom for me was a car accident.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So it could have been way worse. I'm extremely fortunate to be sitting here, really. So I was driving. It was the middle of the day, drunk, driving. On my way home, for the famous phrase, I'm going to get home before this stuff hits me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We've heard people say that before.
Yeah.
If you're saying that, it's probably already hit you. Just throwing that out there.
Most definitely.
It's like people that say that I'm drunk. They're like, no, you don't need to tell us. We got it.
We
got
got
it. Yeah. No need to say
there.
it. I'm drunk.
We
Yeah,
know.
we know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're wearing it pretty good.
Yeah.
So it was actually Masters weekend, which I'm a huge golf fan. And so it's my favorite weekend of the year.
Yeah.
It was the Thursday of Masters weekend, so I was celebrating.
Obviously, as you do.
As I do. And this was a COVID time, so we actually had a site visit, and everyone's masked up. And so when everyone's masked up, no one's close to you, no one's smelling anything on you.
Yeah.
So I started early, got my work done, and I was going home to watch the Masters. It was just going to be a great afternoon. And I was probably fussing on my phone, doing something. And I ended up causing a car wreck on an exit. I hit the car. It was a 4-car domino effect that I caused. Luckily, everyone walked away fine. Just grateful for that.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, it was obviously a terrible day, but it was also the day that everything clicked. I mean, I didn't have any consequence.
Yeah. Shit just got real. Let's just put it that way. Right.
I'll rephrase the consequence thing. My therapist makes me rephrase this. I didn't have any legal consequences up to that point. I mean, my marriage was definitely suffering. But that was the only relationship that was suffering.
But this is acute and jarring, and it's one thing to slowly kill your marriage, from that. There's one thing to have just an acute smack, literally, right?
I don't remember the car
accident. It's a wake-up call.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I blacked out because the airbag went off.
Yeah, you got punched in the
So
face.
I got punched in the face.
drunk.
I was drunk and trauma. So you put those three together, it doesn't mesh well for memories. And I do remember handcuffs, and I do remember the back of a police car and going to a hospital to get my blood drawn. And that was my first time I've ever been to jail, and the first time I've ever been in handcuffs. And everyone has different thresholds for bottom. That was enough for me. And I'm grateful that it was all things. When you start to get into recovery and go into the rooms, that's a high bottom. One DUI is a very high bottom. Most people in those rooms, if they went the DUI route, they've had 2 or 3.
Wow.
So I got very lucky in that regard. But that was it. That was the one. That was the day. So that was April 9th, 21 that's my sobriety day.
Circle that on the calendar.
Oh yeah, that's more important than my birthday.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah.
So when did triathlon start entering the picture?
That started about 6 months after my sobriety date.
And what about it? Was it the idea that just keep your mind off of it, or was it
a friend in the program?
Really?
Yeah. So when you get sober, you just do a bunch of things you don't want to do, right? So you get involved and you get a sponsor, and they're just like, do this, do this, do this. And so someone's like, you need to go to this recovery treatment center in Ashland City on Thursday nights. I was like, that's like 45 minutes away. And I got to cut out work early. That doesn't sound like something I want to do. Doesn't matter. Go. It's just like, you have to do it. And so I'd been going with a couple guys for a couple months, and so my buddy Chris was just like, he just did the Chattanooga. Yeah, he did the full yesterday.
Nice. Okay.
And he's like, hey, I'm thinking of getting into triathlons. You should do it. I'm like, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do anything to do it. I don't own a bike.
Yeah.
And I haven't swam in 20 years. This is a terrible idea. And he wore me down 6 weeks. It took him. He's like, I'm signing up for Chattanooga and this is such an addict thing. We don't obviously we struggle with moderation. We didn't sign up for a sprint or an Olympic. We signed up for a 70.3. So we go from like not having a bike to signing up for a half Ironman. Okay.
There's a good percentage of triathletes that are probably either recovering addicts or type A. If it's not epic, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And so it took a while, but he got me there. And so I signed up, and I found a coach. She's located just outside Denver. I got looped into her through a nutritionist in town, and so it was just kind of, okay, let's give this thing a shot.
How many months away was that half when you decided?
6 months.
Okay, so it's not
6 months for it. That's not too bad. That's better than 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's what she was like, it's not the worst. It's not the best.
Yeah.
We can work with this. And it was because I was in good shape.
Yeah.
You
You were fit anyway.
Yeah.
You were doing,
I do a bunch of HIIT classes. Like, Shed Fitness is one of my favorite spots in town. So I'd go there like 3-4 times a week. I was in good shape, but I was also still 20 pounds heavier than I am now.
Really?
Yeah. And so the triathlon training started, taking that a little differently.
Yeah, you go from high intensity, right, which is short burst energy, to suddenly I have to, that's got to be 4 hours long. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's
Right.
like, oh man, this is wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I didn't think I'd ever do a triathlon. I'd run some half marathons before, but I'd never run more than 13 miles. And so it was just like getting involved in the process. There's just a lot of parallels to recovery.
In what way?
And triathlon, like discipline's huge, right? Where you have, whether you want to do it or not, get it done.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in perfection.
Yeah.
Nobody's sobriety looks perfect, right?
Yeah.
We're all just trying to do the best we can. Your workouts are not going to be perfect, especially if you're new to it.
Yeah.
You have no idea. You think you know what riding a bike is. No idea.
No
right?
idea.
Swimming, no idea.
Yeah.
Like all these things are so new to you. So there's so much humility in triathlon because you have to accept, like, all right, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to get, this is where I'm at right now. And I just have to try to be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that kind of.
And we talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So you're uncomfortable on many levels. So I could see that. I could see that relating.
Was there
Pretty much. To that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there a frustration also that you have to kind of fight, right? Like, because I mean, part of it, you got to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. There's also frustration, like this, it's not coming quickly, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and that I think at times could be somewhat dangerous, right? Where it's like, screw it, screw it, right?
Yeah.
But because of that sobriety, or because you made that choice to do that, I mean, hopefully that sounds like that's the beacon you use to be able to do that.
Yeah, and think with sobriety, that will always, hopefully be the hardest thing that I've ever done, right? Like straightening up, getting sober. So you can relate a lot of those things to that.
This isn't as hard as that.
It's not as hard as that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely frustrations, but I think going through the steps and working all that will help you wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
Quicker than many, I think, in some ways. And so, the frustration's there, but you also be like, man, I've been frustrated before. And also there's, you lean into gratitude a lot. And that's what I found so much in endurance training is like, I feel so connected when I'm just out running like zone 2, like that is the spot where you're like, it's almost, you get to a place where it's like meditation in motion where you can just like go and you don't have to worry about it. And once you get to that point, you're like, man, this kind of, it may suck right now. Like if you're on hour 2 or whatever, like, this is crappy, but at the same time, I'm so grateful to be able to do this at this moment in time. So when you start leaning in on that, which to me heavily stems from recovery, is like, I'm grateful to be here today.
Yeah.
Cause to me, I'm on my second shot. Like if I didn't accept that I was an alcoholic and didn't accept that I needed sobriety, I do not believe I would have made another 4 months. I was so brave driving.
Yeah.
And the consumption was like, it was going up real fast. This wasn't a linear chart. Like, this was like the logarithmic function, and it was like skyrocketing.
It's scary when you look.
It got real scary. I'm like, how did I not get it?
Yeah.
But you don't. I mean, you can't really.
Yeah, and that's, I think for triathlon, that's what you try to. Some people, they look at the pain of it, right? That's a long time, and that's all that sort of stuff, right? Swimming is my least experienced area, but if I look back and I want to try to get mellow, I just remember the sound of, because we're out in the lake and it's just the sound of nothing out there and you hitting the water, you're breathing, and that meditative kind of feel.
Yeah.
Of all the 3 disciplines, even though I love biking the most, the swimming is the one that I always look back on and go, man, when you hit that zone and you just kind of put it in cruise control, that's fun, right? It's not entirely suffering. You're not suffering, like crazy. There are some elating moments in the middle of triathlon, because I think we have this misconception also that, it's all just, I'm going to suffer for hours. No, you just need to pace for hours, and some of it's going to be suffering. Other ones, to your point, you look around going, wow, I mean, look what I'm doing.
And I think it's being in your own head.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the challenge of, and I'm just saying in sport, you need to be in your own head and be comfortable being in your own head be able to get yourself through it. And I think the grateful thing is perfect. I think that's what we try to talk to. I try to get people to switch their thinking of, I have to do this workout. It's like, no, I get to do this workout.
Yeah.
And that grateful part of it, I think, is huge. So I've been, I guess, blessed to say that I've coached both of you swimming, because that's how I met. Matthias was actually. Yeah. So I have a little bit of background with both of you in the pool, which
that's
is
why
kind
we're
of
really
which is kind of
it's a
cool.
swimming intervention.
Yeah, it is. It's totally about.
Your
We need to
form
talk
is
about
terrible.
swimming. Yes.
We need to work on it.
Did you look at the videos I sent you? We need to talk about those. No, I'm just kidding.
They went to junk.
But it's been great that way, because that's how I got to know you, and then found out your story after that, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think going back to sort of when you decided to make that choice, like that's it, to your point, it was a pretty explosive, literally moment.
Yeah.
Were there times when temptation was, as you're going back, where temptation because you were tired or because it's been long or the bad things happen, like, I've had a long week, I've had a terrible side, or was it once you look forward, that was it for you?
It was, for a while, it was pretty clear. Like I wasn't close to, I don't think I've ever been close to like picking up, but there's been moments where I'm like, it'd kind of be nice right now.
Yeah. Are those sad moments or happy moments? Because it seems like it'd be both. Like
it would
huge celebration, gonna have that.
Right.
Horrible week.
It's kind of weird how it works for me. Was like the first year I was like, man, I'm missing out on the celebration part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Because the bottom was so fresh that you still like I hated alcohol for a year.
Yeah.
Like, look at what this did to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I hated it, but eventually that hate fades. And then I started missing out on like weddings and like I thought like, oh, I'm missing out, but you get more comfortable and then you don't really like feel that. You don't feel like you're missing it. And then it comes randomly, that like the sadness part of it. Like if you have, like I had a couple rough moments, like, some family stuff here and some business stuff there. And it's just like, I felt my, like, not a pull to it. I'm like, man, this would have set me off.
It's like a muscle memory. Like your natural reaction when that happens is to reach that way.
And that's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
But it's also a really good feeling to be able to
stop,
notice that.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, we don't need that. And to just like say, hey, I thought about it today. Like I blogged about it.
Yeah.
This was on the radar, and I didn't do it. And this is a testament to the work that I have done. But this is human. I relate a lot of it to like a relationship that you were in, because it very much was one in a lot of ways. You experienced loss, grief, and then like you remember. And eventually you get to a point where like, man, I remember the good times. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Yeah. But then like, no, like, you got out of that for a reason. So like you have to like remind and that's why we go to meetings, because you need it, or else it would creep back. It's so effective, and it's like, it's just in there. And if you don't keep track of it, it's going to pop back up.
Mind is powerful.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So you decided to make the challenge, do the half Ironman.
Yeah.
6 months.
Training
6 months,
was going. I take it Tom was doing the local swim because you had a coach in Denver. Was that kind of the way it worked out?
It was post. I think I got.
It was afterwards.
It was afterwards.
Yeah, it was afterwards.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out how you can do. Because I'm a highly visual person, so the idea of trying to swim remotely was just not a non-starter for me. I mean, I couldn't do it. So, in fact, you did it. Congratulations.
Oh, right? Thank you. Yeah.
So, as it's approaching the Chattanooga, how'd it feel? How'd you do? What what kind of bike did you get?
Yeah, it was really cool. I have a Canyon. I don't have a
Wow.
I know, but it's not a tri bike though. It's a road bike. It's a really nice road bike.
No, it's a Canyon. They're
really
nice road bikes.
Really nice road bike. Yeah. But of course, the grass is always greener. But
N plus one.
Is it like guitars? You can't have more than one
exactly.
guitar?
It's the same thing.
It's like, man,
since we're in a studio.
I know. I can't. The next house, when we get a bigger, whenever that happens, a bigger house, I'm gonna have a tri bike like that.
Yeah.
When we have room for it, that's actually gonna happen.
They're not that bigger than a road bike, just so you know.
I know, but I just only have space for like one bike.
Okay,
I don't want to trade.
It takes the same space.
Yeah. I don't want to trade out because I really like it. So I don't want to like make that.
Don't get rid of that one.
No, I just want, you got to add. You don't get rid of it.
Exactly.
So had the road bike, feeling good.
Yeah.
So of the three disciplines, it sounds like running may have been your most comfortable, right?
It was. It is outside of triathlon.
Okay.
So, I'm like a pretty good runner if I don't do anything prior to, but I've learned a lot about my knees and cramping, and it gets me pretty much every race that I do. So I mean, the race was so cool. What I really love about triathlon is the community. It's incredible. And this is also, it kind of helps with sobriety too, is because it's generally a relatively healthy group of people.
Yeah.
You can't do these things hungover,
Yeah,
right?
no.
You can't put in that effort. And like Athletic Brewing is one of the Ironman sponsors. Like,
Yeah.
it's forward that, and half the people just don't drink because they don't want to or like to. They don't.
Yeah.
They know what it does to their body, and it's great.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so the community is supportive without it knowing it's being supportive in that way.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy that. Went to dinner with 10 people who did that race. Not one person at the table asked me about my time.
Yep.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
You know, there's
Not. What was your time?
Did you finish?
Yeah.
Did you
Yes.
finish? Yes.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Way to go.
That's
Way to
it.
get it done.
That is it. And
all that
I was
matters.
like, man, that is so cool.
What was your time?
Yeah.
The first one, yeah, no, I don't know. I was so frustrated.
First off, you're sitting with the wrong group of 10 people. Because the first question should have been,
Well,
when's
I
your
wanted
time?
everyone to ask. I'm like, let's talk
We
about
need
it.
7 other people.
Yeah, well, I mean, because then it's like, all right, so how do I make an excuse for the run?
There you go.
know, to make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seem like it would have been better.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
yeah.
But
What
yeah.
were your expectations? Obviously, expectations was to finish, but
Yeah, I honestly, the first one I wanted to like break 6 hours. That was like in my head.
yeah.
But I just cramp off the bike. Like,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how hard I'm going. If I'm riding more than 40 miles on a bike,
Mm-hmm.
if I get off that thing, it doesn't matter the pace.
Yep.
Something's going on, and I still haven't figured it out. So, I cramped on the run, and
Yeah.
so my half marathon pace typically is like the one I did in April. I think I ran in like 1:30, 1:39 or something like
Nice.
that.
All right.
And so you'd think I'd be able to run a 2-hour half marathon in a 70.3 ish,
Yeah.
somewhere around there, but it was like 2:15.
Okay.
Got it.
So it was like a minute. It was a minute slower than I would have liked it to be, but it was still a great experience.
Still not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was still
It's
good.
Still legit. Yeah.
yeah,
Still
yeah.
good.
So I think my first, that May was like 6:15. I think I got somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I did it again this year because I just wanted, like, I'm just like, I got to get back there.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
pissed
yeah.
at the run.
I can do this better.
Yeah.
Do this better.
This improvement
Turns
here.
out I could do the swim better and the bike better.
Good.
I had the exact same run. I shaved 20 minutes off my time,
Yeah.
and I didn't shave a single second off my
That's
run.
Off
funny.
your run.
Yeah,
But you're
so-
sub 6
wow.
now, so there you
Now
go.
I'm sub 6.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, well, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Take
I'm
that.
there. Yeah,
That's good.
but I do like. I did the Ashland City try last year. I hurt myself. I couldn't get in it this year. Last year I did it. I really liked that distance.
Yeah.
And that's a
So the
Olympic
Olympic.
or?
Olympic.
The
yeah.
Olympic distance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one I really enjoyed.
Now, why is that? Is it because the training's easier or because you can just go faster?
Go faster.
So it sounds like you like to go fast.
I
right?
like speed. I think I'm built a little bit more for speed.
Yeah.
On some
So,
level.
Yeah.
well, I think because of your HIIT training too, right? You're used to kind of fast twitch, fast burst, right? So
Yeah.
if you're able to burst it, and Olympics a nice distance because it's long enough where it's gonna you have to respect it.
Just enough of a challenge. Yeah.
enough.
Just
Yeah.
enough
Yeah.
to push you.
It's like the
on that
800
run.
meter
Right.
run of triathlon.
It's just
right?
enough
You know,
pacing.
you have to
Yeah.
go. You know, if you try to do a 400, you can just sprint it. You
Yeah.
can't sprint an 800.
Exactly, and it's a short swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So-
we like
Short
that.
swim.
We like that.
Cool.
But yeah, I think Olympic is, and the trainings. I know I haven't trained for an Olympic, but I know well, at least with what I want to be doing for triathlon, which is not competitive. I think the difference between training for a 70.3 and Olympic is going to be a deal breaker for me moving forward with like,
Meaning what?
Well, yeah, yeah.
time. How much
Yeah.
time do I have
I
in
got it.
life
I
with,
got
with business?
It fits
with my
into
wife?
life better.
Got it.
Yeah.
The shorter distances fit into, so you can
Exactly.
keep doing it
Yeah.
without having to like set your life aside.
Yeah, I think when we had coffee, I just
Yeah.
want to be good enough shape
Yeah.
that I could jump in an Olympic distance
At
at
any
any
time.
point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And that's like
Yeah.
kind of what I'm finding that sweet pocket right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and I think that's there's a term I want to try to trot out, which is find your distance, right? Which is if your distance is Olympic or sprint because you love the idea of going fast, or you love the idea of I want to be fit and be able to do that without having to 7 months of training, or you know what, I love the idea of the long distance training because I need that kind of thing because that's what. Just find whatever distance. And it sounds like, Olympic may be that perfect distance between fulfilling that speed thing that you want to do, plus, like you said, the time element that you're not spending every weekend, oh, guess what? I'm going to go run and bike today.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
and just have friends
See
that
ya, hon.
have friends that
Yeah.
do the long distances.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what did you exactly? What did
Go
you
with the
learn from yourself when you got done? I mean, when you look back on that first half Ironman that you did,
Oh man,
what do you think? Was it confidence? Was it?
I think there was confidence that stemmed from it. I think it was just it was like a full circle moment, for, especially Chattanooga specifically. So, let's see, 21 was the April 9th, 21 was bottom, and me and my wife had a trip to Chattanooga planned the following weekend. We didn't. This wasn't a last minute thing. Like we had it booked just to do like some fun hikes and stuff. And then I did that, and we went anyway because we're like we need to clear our heads. Let's get out in nature. Let's do some hiking. And so Chattanooga was kind of a full circle moment. It was almost like a year of sobriety, like celebration, right? Okay. So it was more than just a triathlon to me at that time.
Yeah.
So the first one was like. It was so emotional. I think I cried like 5 times on the course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, like I got on the bike, I put my helmet on. I'm just like in tears. I'm like, this is so bizarre, but it's just like, I'm so happy that I can do this. Like that was gratitude at its purest, was like riding on that. And it's a gorgeous bike too. So like that bike ride was beautiful. And then like on the run, even though I was struggling, but it's still just like, you can do this. Like, what have you done the past year?
Yeah.
You know, you've literally like, we're a shell of a man. And now all of a sudden you're crossing a finish line. That's something that is a very difficult thing to do. So it definitely, there's confidence that drew from it. And just the appreciation of life in just a very big way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was your wife there at the finish line too? Oh, that's gotta be awesome too.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's not allowed. She's bad juju. So we've already established every time she shows up, I get in a wreck. So she's not allowed.
She's not allowed.
She's like, can I go? I'm like, no,
not this one. No, I want to finish this.
I've got, I had 2 major bike wrecks and she was at both races. So I'm like, no, you no longer get
She probably doesn't want to go.
She doesn't want to go
in the house. So how was it for the second one? When you went back to do it again?
Yeah.
Same sense of gratitude, same sense. So it's a special place for you at this point.
I think so. And I think there's a good chance I jump in it next year, and without expectations. And that's another thing is like triathlon will teach you have to roll with whatever's out there. Because there's an interesting thing with sobriety, and I know a lot of people are trying to be respectful when they say this, but like, is it okay if I drink around you? Or is it, do you want to go there? Is this okay? And like, there's a period where that is important for people to like make sure that you're stable before you go back into the wild in some ways. And so like that's a big part of, the triathlon thing is like, all right, well, where am I comfortable with? Like, how's this going to relate, and where is it something that I'm going to be comfortable with, or is it like something that it's going to be a one-time thing? I'm like, oh, that's not going to be for me. And so like it kind of just, I think I'll just jump in it just because it feels safe, and there's no expectations of what's going to happen, or I can just go out and do it. Just make sure and not care about my time. That's a way to enjoy these things. Instead of being so specifically focused and like, don't try that or don't try that. Like, no, just go for it. And kind of because I have cramped both times I've been down. I like the same exact run, and it's not a very fun run.
Oh, not when you're cramping.
No
way.
It's hilly.
It's a challenging run to begin with.
I know.
And then cramp on top of that. It just
not great.
But and to your point, I mean the weather, the environment's going to give you what it's going to give you. Right? I mean, you may be, I did California, and I thought I was going to crush the bike, and then a 40-mile-an-hour headwind said, "No, you're not."
There you go.
Right? And you're like, "What do? You shrug and just you go with what you go with, right?"
No, that's a great point. Like,
water's choppy. It's like, well, can't control that.
You can be so prepared.
Yeah.
And you can't control it. And this, like we've talked about stoicism. Like that's a big part of it. And like stoicism started my entire journey of journaling. Like I've started journaling like in 2017 every morning, and so that's been a foundation of my morning routine. And that's what the triathlon fit into that morning routine, because I get up, I journal, I know what I'm going to do next. Like
you've got scheduled set.
It's scheduled.
You need that.
Yeah, exactly.
You absolutely need that.
Yeah, and then like focusing on what can you control, what you can't. If you go into triathlon thinking you're going to control what happens at race. No, you're adapting.
No, that's a great.
And that's what it is. That's how you adjust and how you adapt to what's thrown at you that day. You read the social media posts and the groups where everyone's freaking out about everything. It was like, well, you got to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, plan D, and then you got to be a little MacGyver and figure it out on your
Then you got to have a fuck it plan, which is
it's like I'm just going to get it done, right? I'm going to figure this thing out.
Seriously, it's like fuck it.
Okay. Game plan's gone. We're just moving forward.
Yeah, now you just make it up as you go. And figure out how you get to the finish. The whole goal is getting to the finish. Right? And
I think that was probably the parallel I was struggling connecting those dots, but you helped me out there. And it was just like one of those. That's a lot of what sobriety is. It's like you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, and you can't control
how you're
going
to feel,
and you just have to find your way through it on some different level. And like that's the first step. I can't control. I do not have control. Like that is step one. And so like that mindset, like you've already, if you've taking that shift in your life and you're like, all right, I need to be sober now. It's the first thing you do is I cannot control this substance, so it cannot be a part of.
Yeah.
Like you have to accept you can't control it. And like in training triathlon, you control as much as you can because you're either on a trainer or like you're riding, you're doing sprints around a track. That's you got that under control, but race is like, no, you don't control any of that.
Control any of that. And that's where the stoicism comes in. I think a lot as a philosophy, it's not about numbing your feelings, it's about addressing your feelings. It's about basically recognizing it. I always say you put a name on it and then you can actually deal with it, right? Once you address it, say it out loud, I have this is how I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this way? How can I make that a positive feeling instead of a negative feeling? And that helps tremendously in endurance sports. And I'm sure with your recovery as well, that's kind of fit into that mold with that, and I think the journaling is what's fascinated me the most, because your book is your journal, right? This is the rawest form of a book out there that you wrote with your therapist as well. You said had some notes on it, and you've been sharing this on social media, so I've gotten little bits and pieces. I have your book now. I'm looking forward to diving in a little bit deeper on it.
Thanks.
But it's this is a special book. I mean, this is something that you don't see every day. You get the story of how you remember things, but you were writing it down. So your memory was a little bit more, you were able to bring that to the forefront.
It's a little more real.
You didn't hide any of it. It's not like you rewrote your memory. You wrote down your journal. It's here.
It's there.
It's raw.
There's errors. There's typos.
It's all in that.
And
in that sense. And that's fantastic. I mean, that's something that I think everyone should take a look at. Because it certainly helps in other parts of life. And the journaling is something that I'm a little jealous of, because I haven't been able to get to that point yet. I really do want to journal. And we've talked about that. That's something that I'm working on as a goal of mine, to be able to journal every day and kind of get through that. I think that helps us as athletes, as
people,
spouses, as humans in general, to be able to be more upfront with ourselves of who we really are, as opposed to what we want to be or what we think we are type of thing. So
I agree.
So when was the nugget that you decided to take something intimate like a journal and decide to publish it? Was that you and your therapist kind of came to that conclusion together, or was that something?
It's something I did first. So part of my journal process, like pre-recovery, is when I finish a journal, I go back through and I read. So journals for me, I use the same 5x8 moleskin. It normally covers 3 to 4 months daily for me, depending on the season of life. And so that means every quarter, every third of a year, I'm going back and reading through what I was writing in the morning. And so as part of the getting sober process, I wanted to go all the way back. I mean, not just like the previous. I wanted to see years. I don't want to repeat this. So let's study the past and let's figure out how to jump ahead of potentially anything that got in the way. And so what I found was so much of just lies and manipulation, and just it was really hard to read some of it. Like I'm just sitting there and like playing the victim. Nobody loves me. Like the world's against me. Like these expectations for me are just astronomical. Like I can't be that kind of man, kind of thing. And so I started reading that. I'm like, and I would write on what I read. So this was just for me. It all started with just like an exploration of sobriety, and like an exercise in sobriety was the whole genesis of this thing. And then I started thinking, I think someone could potentially pick this thing up and read it and get something out of it. Like a shared story, or someone maybe that isn't necessarily considering themselves an addict yet, but maybe they're on that route and maybe they feel some of these things and maybe they can get this and think differently. So I presented it to my therapist, not as like, hey, would you do this? I'm like, I want to write this book. I would love for you to write the foreword, because you know me. Outside of my wife, you know me better than anybody else. You absolutely do. And so she's like, that's a great idea. And then a month later, and I was like, I'd come to sessions, and I'd come to sessions with my journal. And I'd just read her, I'd highlight and be like, this is what I was struggling with last couple of weeks or something. That was kind of part of our process in therapy. And eventually she's like, well, I could pull session notes and I could show what you were saying to me in addition to what you were saying to your journal. So there's like 3 voices in this thing. There's addict Mathias, there's recovery Mathias, and then there's Ashley Boyd, who's my therapist. And so that's kind of the cadence of it, is a journal entry, me analyzing what I was feeling there, and then she comes in and out based on where the timeline was with sessions, and would say, okay, Matt just wrote about this bender that he went on.
Yeah.
And he didn't mention alcohol in a session at all. Didn't come up.
Yeah.
And so she would analyze my analyzation. And it gives this clinical weight to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where I was going to go. It was just something that I wanted to do. And then eventually one of my friends connected me with somebody who was going to a 7-day detox for alcohol. And I just printed him my rough draft of it. It was before Ashley's writing. It was just mine. And so it looked like a film script because they didn't have my 11. Yeah, I was like, boom, there you go. Because they can't bring phones into it. And like, this is it. And he called me after he got out. And it was 4 days of medically supervised detox. So don't know where you are. You're on medications. Day 5, he started to get a clear head.
Yeah.
He read the whole thing in day 6 and 7.
Wow.
And called me and we talked for like an hour. And he was just like, this book changed the way I looked at myself. It made me want to become a better man. It made me want to walk a straighter path. Like you put into words stuff I was feeling for 5 years that I had no idea I was feeling until I read this book.
Wow.
And so with that type of response, I mean, it was the most emotional one of the most emotional conversations I've ever had. And so that response to me was like, now I need to take this a little more seriously. Like, let's put it together. Let's get it edited. Let's like
do it right.
Polish it.
Yeah.
Do
Let's
it
really,
right.
Yeah.
And so that was in January of this year. So I started writing the book on my 1-year sobriety date. So April of 22 is when I started writing it.
Okay.
And then I wrote it all with Ashley in a year. And then I took 4.5 months to put it together, get it professionally edited, design work, all that kind of stuff. And then it came out like 2 weeks ago, something like that. So it is available now.
Cool.
On Amazon.
And the title is?
The title is, because I'm not good at this, the title is Not Yet Too Far Gone.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's the only Not Yet Too Far Gone
Well,
on
there you go.
Amazon.
You find it on Amazon,
Which is
Kindle,
really
paperback,
Yep.
self-publishing,
Self-publishing, did it myself.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
You're hanging on to the movie rights.
Yep,
Yeah.
I still got rights.
So, but there's this.
Who would want to watch that movie?
Yeah. Well, I have to go back to this because the part that's fascinating me the most is internally you knew you had a problem.
Yeah.
And then it took an external factor, your wife catching you, to finally say out loud, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Car wreck. I have a problem. Okay. Now
Now
shit just got
this is
real.
like real.
Now I got
Yeah.
a problem. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's, and you have these private notes, these notes that are, your most intimate you. And then you decided, it feels like that was sort of that last phase for you to be able to go, not only can you announce that you have a problem, but, I'm going to share that intimate gut level just journey of that problem. That must have been a freeing sort of. Is it frightening and freeing, I guess, at the same time? I mean, you drop this thing down and go, holy shit, this is me. Like, this is me longer. But it's not just because you've been lying to
Not
other
the
people.
version of
Right. I've been lying to myself.
You're lying to
Yeah,
yourself.
everybody,
And so what you've done is you said, I've been lying to myself. I've been lying to the world.
Yeah.
This is the truth now. I mean, that has got to be both freeing and frightening, I guess would be.
I think it's still in the freeing phase.
Okay.
Nothing's been frightening yet. And I'm not sure if I'll ever get there. Like, I think there'll be some interesting moments when someone starts to ask me about something that went through my life and I never met them. Like, that'll happen at some point. We're like, hey, remember
that'd
when
be
you
interesting,
almost left your wife? I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What's your name again? Like,
Yeah.
that may be frightening on some level at some point.
But you didn't feel
I
that
never
sense
felt
of
it.
really.
Yeah, because to me,
That's
I was
cool.
like, I needed
You
something
needed
to
It's like a
say.
purge, right?
Yeah.
Almost.
I had something to say. The freedom came when the book came out. And the best way of explaining it is that I felt like I finally won the war. Right?
Nice.
So like the alcohol won so many battles.
Yeah.
So many battles. And the only way to not have it win the war is to disengage, right? And to just not fight the war.
Yeah.
And so, and then, once I was writing this and I was so, I don't want to say obsessed, but I probably attacked it alcoholically. Like, there was no moderation with writing this book. Like, there was like, this is what I need to say and let's do it. And then, but discipline helped with that. Cause I knew when I was going to write it and I was, up 5 a.m. every day writing for an hour.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of, do I want to say this? The only time that came about was when I would give my wife each chapter after I finish it. I'm like, if there's anything in here you don't want anyone else to know, let me know. Yeah. And she just being a therapist and being in the mental health world. And she's obviously a first-hand witness of what sobriety can do to a person. Cause I've always been there, but now I'm like a different version of me. Like,
sure.
it's weird going from like, I realized you can be, instead of being a high functioning alcoholic, I can just be high functioning and just like do a lot of cool things. That's kind of sweet. And so she just saw what that had done to me, that she's like, I don't want you to hold anything back.
Sure.
The whole point of this thing is openness, be raw, be vulnerable, and just present it and be like, I hope this helps somebody. And we both agree, like, if this helps one person, it's totally worth it. And it already has, because when I'm still here. So it helped me.
Well, and your wife as well, right?
She's like the hidden star of this book. Like therapists will read it and they'll be like, wow, she is an amazing, and I know she's an amazing woman, but like,
now the world knows.
The world should.
Now everybody else knows.
Exactly. And that, but not, I mean, her, yes, very much specifically, but anyone that's loved anyone through addiction deserves that type of credit too.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's just so hard to do. And that was the hardest part of the book, was reliving those days through her eyes.
Yeah.
Is because now I'm where she was, basically, reading what I was doing, what I was feeling.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had no idea what I was putting her through, because you're so focused on yourself. Like alcoholics technically, or tend to be rather self-centered individuals, because we always think we're not hurting anybody else, we're just hurting ourselves. Which is so far from the truth. So I never thought, it was never scary to me to put this out, because I just truly believe that it's going to help so many people, that whatever it might throw on me, I don't care.
Or what people think about you, because
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Just bring it. That's fine. Like, you have your own opinion. Some people.
So you've got the book out. It sounds like, from a personality standpoint, right? You took those idle hands make devil's work, right? So the idea that you took that alcoholic sort of tendency, that kind of angst, pointed it towards triathlon, pointed it towards a book. Book's done. Sounds like the triathlon's done. How do you, from a next step standpoint, do you intentionally know you have to keep yourself busy, or is that a conscious thing, or are you itchy for the next sort of, do you need I need a milestone. I figured out that I can't just work out to work out. I need to have a workout to a goal.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do they?
Blessing or
Honestly,
Do they really?
do they?
Maybe not to his level. I mean, he really needs a mark on a calendar to scare the crap out of himself.
I tell Tom, like, I need a goal that scares the shit out of me. That's what gets me up in the morning. If it doesn't slightly scare me, then it's like, why? Right.
I get that. I'm not sure right now. I don't think I consciously do that. I don't think I don't sit around like, I need this, there, but I think I will generate something to do. Like the book, now that it's out, I still want a publisher to pick it up. Like, it's self-published, but I know the reach will be much more with a publisher. And I also, like, there's visuals that I did not do with the self-published version. And there was some intention with that, with holding some stuff back, because I think if a publisher eventually wants to pick it up, we have a lot of room to grow, and there's a lot of things that can come in a second edition that I didn't include on purpose. Sure. So like actual journal entries, like scan them, let's throw them in there, like real stuff.
The pictures, you could see.
And the main thing with the journal, or the book's out, but I think now is kind of almost the harder part. Because now I gotta let people know about it, and that's really difficult to do. There's so much noise everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So it's just like, how do I get to the right hands? And that's right now I'm calling my outreach program. So every book and I realized I want to do a 1-for-1. Every book purchase, I'm going to send a book to a recovery center.
Nice.
So I have a spreadsheet. I know who I want to reach in
That's great.
all across the states. This is not a Tennessee thing. I'm going to. I shipped one over the weekend to Orange County, just through a friend, knew somebody, and so. Originally, I was going to do 1-for-1, buy one book published, or not published, one book purchased, send a book. I'll use my royalty to print one at author cost and ship it. Shipping's more expensive than I thought. It's going to be more like a 3-to-1. Especially out the West Coast.
Thanks, FedEx.
No. So it'll be, and I'll still make it work, but it's basically like, for the more the books sell, the more I get out. And so the outreach thing, that's where my focus is now. Is all right, I'm going to find which centers and which directors of the center to get it to.
Cool.
So it's kind of like, you can call it seed marketing on some level if you want to, because it's just like putting it out there. But again, like if the point was to sell this thing, I would have done a 6-month marketing plan and hired like a firm and did a big thing. But that's not really the point. The point's to help people and to get in the right hands, and like the marketing aspect of things would go to probably a bunch of people that not necessarily are struggling or need it. But I know myself, I read 30 to 40 books on alcoholism and what it does to your body and memoirs. I tried to read my way out.
Yeah.
And so you can't. Spoiler alert.
By the way, yeah.
You can't
do that.
But I did realize when I started writing that this was a book I wish I had. And that really opened my mind up to wanting to get out, because if I wish I had it, somebody else wishes they had it too.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I wish I had it before I said I'm an alcoholic. Like, I wish I had it as I was starting to like think about, is this an issue? Like, what's going on? Are other people struggling with it?
Years ago.
Yeah. Because most of the memoirs you see out there are spectacular bottoms. I mean, like rock stars, right?
Yeah.
Flipping hotel rooms, been to rehab 10 times, just throw more money at it, and everything eventually works out. That is not the typical route to sobriety.
Not normal.
Right. And so that's what I wanted to present. Was I wanted to write a book that was more conversational. It's not clinical by any stretch. There's definitely clinical aspects of it, but it doesn't read like that. So it reads like we're having a conversation. And I wanted it to be relatable, where I have people, texting me and calling me that are not addicts at all, but they just like something I wrote, like, man, that made me think of my relationship with my wife different. Thanks for that.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. And that's what I've gotten out of it. The excerpts that you've had on Instagram and stuff. That's what I'm seeing, is that it's more than just targeting towards alcoholism. I think it's, seeing yourself as a different person.
Yeah.
And coming to face
Thank
with
you.
that.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Excited to make sure people go get it.
Yeah. We'll put the link on the show notes for sure.
Killer.
We'll have that. And Matthias, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
It's been a great conversation. We've been talking about it for a little bit, having you on. So I'm really glad that we could actually do this and make it happen.
Absolutely.
Everybody, comments, questions, keep them coming. Let us know what you want. 5 stars, thumbs up, all that good stuff.
All the stuff.
Please, definitely, if you got questions and comments, send it to them. You can get us on Instagram and Facebook, all that good stuff.
Yep.
So we appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
And everything.
Thanks for coming by.
We'll catch you on the next one.